Good morning and welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. I'm Brigid Burke, and today is the 12th of March 2025. It is a cloudy day, probably not going to be as warm today, but still very spring-like. Things are actually starting to pop up out here. I'm seeing more, it's amidst all the brown, I'm starting to see some green, so that's a good thing. Give it a moment to see who of our group joins the live chat room this morning. And then I'll talk a little bit more about what's going on, about what we're doing today. Today we have the Saturn Cazimi, and so this is when the Sun is conjunct Saturn. In fact, that conjunction was almost exact about an hour ago. So that, depending on where Saturn is in your chart, Saturn's in Pisces right now, and Leela's on. Good morning, good to see you. Yeah, I was just gonna say, there's this Saturn Cazimi that's going on right now, and it's been described by some people as the death of Saturn, but you know, whenever there's a death of that kind of an energy, it's usually the rebirth of another one. And the messages I've gotten about it this morning are actually quite good. They're actually quite positive so far. And Ellen is on. Good morning. I've got Leela and Ellen. Great. This is Ellen. I know I just saw you yesterday virtually. Yeah, this is it's kind of weird because last night was not a night that was filled with dreams, but it was a night that was kind of heavy. Like I woke up feeling very heavy this morning, like emotionally. And so, you know, I did my meditation and I did all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's just weird. It's almost like, Good morning, Kathleen. Good to see you today. Yeah, I'm just talking about the Saturn Cazimi, which is the Sun conjunct Saturn. And I've talked a lot about Saturn actually in the last few weeks. I know that's definitely a topic near and dear to Sam's heart when she's on. But yeah, there's this conjunction between the two of them, which I think is somewhat, I don't know how rare it is actually. I'd have to look it up to see how rare that kind of a thing is. But in the midst of everything else that's been going on, it's kind of busy, kind of creates kind of a crazy energy. And certainly, along with the eclipse that's coming up on Friday, it's definitely marking the end of something. But when I think about Saturn's influence on okay, if I think about Pluto and Capricorn, for instance, and Alistair's on. Good morning, or good afternoon, where you are. Actually, good afternoon to you and Ellen, because you're both coming over here from the UK. And Alex is on. Good morning. Yeah, today it's like it's weird. Like I said, energetically, it feels really weird. I don't know if the rest of you were experiencing this, but it's just kind of, I'm Capricorn, so Saturn's important to me. Yes. And yeah, and right now with this Cazimi, it's almost like there's this alchemical shift that's going on, because obviously Saturn's the ruler of Capricorn. And yeah, in my chart, my Vedic chart, I have a nakshatra of Pusha, which is actually Cancer, but it's Saturn ruled, which is kind of interesting. Good morning, Sudha. Yeah, so it's kind of, yeah, I just woke up. It was just like really weirdly heavy today. But the messages I got about it were like, well, don't worry about it. It's temporary and things will be good, good after that. So I don't know if people have been feeling that. But the Cazimi is, and that's actually a fairly recent term. I remember there's a lot of astrologers who have said, I've been doing astrology for years and I've never heard this term. But it's now, but I guess there's 4 of them. And Alex says, yep, can confirm everything feels weird. Yeah. And it was odd because, like I said, the Cazimi happened at 6:29 this morning, I think it was, Eastern time, which would be like 11:29 over in the UK in the morning. And I guess it would be, well, Alex, you're in the same time zone. So, so it's, yeah, so interesting here. And hello. So what I wanted to do for today, just because this is kind of an interesting time. Oh, and I should also mention just a couple of quick announcements about things. First of all, I was going to do an astrology class on Saturday, and I think I'm going to move it because I feel like I need to keep Friday and Saturday clear. And I'm probably not going to do the morning coffees on either of those 2 days either. Like I feel like there's something that I have to get done those days. I know whether it has to do with the house or whether it has to do with something else. Yeah, this is a really interesting week. I would say to people, wow, that's interesting. I woke up at exactly 6:29. Yeah, isn't that interesting? I just happened to look at, I get my daily Rick Levine horoscope, and I just happened to look exactly at it at that. It was like 6:34, I think. And I was like, oh, it's just happened. Yeah, I had woken up a little bit earlier than that. But yeah, I think there's 4 Kazimis this month. Well, that's in Vedic astrology, they call that combustion. In other words, it's like there's a closeness to the sun that makes it almost look like it disappears or poof, combusts, you know? So yeah, so this idea of this Saturn Kazemi, I do know that Saturn has been kind of on the horizon, very close to the sun for some time, you know, as we got towards the end of February, and it just seems to be, so now they're kind of passing each other. But again, that does represent that there's going to be something that's going to change. Now, Capricornian energy, it's interesting because Alistair brought up Capricorn. And Capricorn, of course, like I said, positively, as we've said, Capricorn is about hard work, persistence, being grounded, being down to earth, having your feet on the ground, which actually seems, the message I seem to be getting is that's the best use of this energy, like to keep your feet on the ground, one foot in front of the other, to be, you know, feel it. I think the heavy feelings we are having are past things that are being released. If we connect that also to the lunar eclipse that's happening Friday, which is in Virgo, and Virgo, as we know, is where the South Node is. And like I said, we've just left Pluto in Capricorn, and we've been Pluto in Aquarius now since, I guess, November, late November. So, but some of the elements of that Capricorn energy that have been less positive, because we know that they exist on a spectrum, and even with Taurus. Okay, I'm a Taurian, so I'm another Earth sign. The good things about Earth sign is that we tend to be practical, we tend to be grounded, we tend to be very consistent, very, very sensible, if you will, just very, and able to kind of, in theory at least, able to go slow and to be patient and to do different things. But with this slow, steady, patient kind of thing, there can be stubbornness, not wanting to change, wanting to stay in the same place, or if there's a lot around Earth in the sense of material acquisition or wealth, sometimes the negative side of that can be as I've said, it can almost be like a greed, like there's never enough of it. You know, there has to be more and more and more to satisfy. So, though, like I said, they're all on a spectrum. Every sign has its positive traits and maybe its less favorable traits. I hesitate to say good and bad, because sometimes, for example, there's times when it's good to dig your heels in, right? Sometimes it's good to stand there and say, no, as a matter of fact, I'm not changing my point of view. But so everything's relative to what's going on. But I think this kind of quote unquote death of Saturn that's being talked about, or this alchemical death, let's see, did also make you think that putting words and curses on ourselves? Okay. Well, there's a whole lot to the way that this energy works. And we are, of course, talking about the way that this energy works generally rather than individually. And in terms of what we actually see here with this energy is that there's some kind of an old way that's coming to an end. There's a way that we've done things, and I've talked about this for a while. We have definitely been we have a certain worldview where we come from. Okay, and when we're depending on where you've grown up, certain ideas about, say, what it means to be successful. Capricorn has a lot to do with that, because Capricorn is the 10th house. And the 10th house is our public face, our visibility, what we're doing in the world, whether that be, oftentimes it's associated with our career. And I say career as opposed to job. Sometimes people do jobs just to make money, and career can be the thing that you authentically want to do, the thing that you've gone to school for, or that you've done, or can also, but sometimes people go to school for things because they think that's the thing they're supposed to do, or or make money for them, right? So the Capricorn energy too can also just be about whatever it is you're contributing to the world, whatever that is. And it doesn't have to be anything grandiose. It sounds very grandiose. It sounds like it's something that is, like we have to go out there and conquer the world or save everybody or something like that. And that's really not what it's about. The way that we have tended to see success, I think Alan Watts had talked about this in one of his lectures, where we grow up, we go to school, whatever attitudes we had as a child, then it's kind of like, okay, we're part of a system where we learn certain things, and these are the things that are deemed important. So a lot of times what we learn in the educational system, consciously or unconsciously, certainly has a big effect on us and how we see things. And those who end up teaching us, it can have a big impact on how we see the world. Of course, our families have a big impact on how we see the world, our ancestry, spoken or unspoken. A lot of what I feel is going on right now is questioning the things that we take for granted. And when you're looking at Capricorn energy, now Capricorn is not a fixed sign. It's actually a cardinal sign. Because it's at the beginning, it comes at the beginning of the winter season is when Capricorn starts. It starts on the winter solstice is the first day of, at least in Western astrology, that's the first day of Capricorn. So, but Capricorn can be about, like I said, be about ambition, about learning things. What Alan Watts had said is that, you figure, okay, you go through school, you graduate high school if you're in the USA, then you go on to college, and then you get your degree in college. Maybe you go on to grad school. Maybe you go out and get a job after that. Or maybe you get a job before that. I mean, there's no linear process there. But the thought when you're growing up is almost like, oh, okay, we're going to finish school. And nowadays you're expected to go to a 4-year school, which I think is ridiculous. But, I think people should go if they want to, not that they should have to. But you go to school, and the idea is that you become an adult, you get a job, right? You get your own place to live. You move out of your parents' place. You get, you have your own place, you have your own money, your own income, your own everything. And we have different ideas about what it means to be successful in doing that. Okay, there's all this thing about poisoning people for success. And I think our Capricorn gets very much tied up in our ideas of success. And at least one version of the United States chart, Capricorn definitely falls kind of in the I think was Pluto in Capricorn at that time. There's two charts. There's one I think that puts it in Aquarius and one that puts it in Capricorn. I can't quite remember the details of that. I remember hearing something about it. But the idea is that our systems are very Capricornian. They're very much based on, like capitalism is very Capricornian. It's very, this idea of, hard work and effort and, the fruits of your labors and the kind of effort that you put into things. And the idea is that and we all know that when we work hard at something, we feel good about it. Like if we see the result of something that we've done, we go, oh, look at that. I put all that work in and it was worth it, right? That's the best feeling about that kind of energy. And Capricorn is just somebody who is persistent, who is able to overcome challenges through persistence, right? Through moving ahead. But what's happened, I think, culturally is negatively, Capricorn has become less, at least the way that it's manifested in the culture, is that the negative side of it is that you're actually not seeing hard work. You're actually just seeing people who know how to take advantage of the system, and kind of creating challenges so that one's hard work ends up not necessarily going anywhere, right? And Sam is on. Hi, good morning, good afternoon. We've got 3 people on from the UK now. This is great. So yeah, it's and we're talking about your favorite. We're talking about Saturn this morning, because we're in Saturn Cazimi, and that combustion of Saturn. To me, I was thinking about it. I said, I guess just to kind of get around to where I was with it, is that I feel like with this Capricorn energy, with Pluto in Capricorn, we've seen what the shadow side of Capricorn is, right? That's what we were looking at from about 2008 onward. That was when we had that period of time. And in that period of time is Saturn in Capricorn is very much, it has a lot to do with the way in which in which we have over-focused on work, over-focused on productivity, over-focused on wealth, and also kind of the way in which we and the way in which that has dictated what our lives are. And a lot of the messages that we're getting seem to be saying that okay, we've been getting a lot of messages around play and around authenticity. And so I think there's kind of this end to this idea of Capricorn as drudgery and as toil. Now, mind you, that doesn't mean that we don't have work to do or that, our work is going to now come to an end. But the work that we're doing is something that is the work that we're actually doing here is something that is very much it should be more about enjoying life, playing, and rethinking about what it is, what we need and how much we need. I feel like Saturn too is also very much tied, in astrologically at least, to karma, and tied to whatever is from the past, whatever our past patterns are. So it's not just about breaking out of the habit. Like, for example, we've often talked about how you can't have leisure. You know what I mean? That we're not that if you want to take time out for yourself, either you're not supposed to because that's being lazy, or you don't know how to do it even when you have that time. If you say, now I finally have a break, I can go and I can do this and that. And the thing is, when we have those breaks, we don't really relax. Our mind never relaxes. We're still thinking about things. We're still trying to sort things out. We're still trying to plan our next steps. We're still trying to do all that kind of stuff. It's just something that we do habitually. And I feel like to a certain degree, there's a breaking of a lot of those habits, because those habits come from all of those places I mentioned. They come from family, they come from tradition, they come from society, they come from our education system, they come from everything. We have this whole thing that is trying to teach us to kind of get out of this space and move into something that is a little bit more that is something that is a little bit more embracing of life, like the idea of Capricorn as representing abundance. And what does abundance mean? Right, we're in Venus retrograde, rethinking our definitions of abundance and what that is. Now, what I actually wanted to do today, I was just kind of giving this sort of very random introduction to the Saturn Cazimi and what it might mean. But whatever is ending, I mean, first of all, when we talk about the death of Saturn, I mean, Saturn doesn't really die. It's just kind of it's a figurative death and rebirth kind of a thing that goes on. But this meaning of Saturn for us may be changing. And of course, certainly Saturn is moving into Aries and out of Pisces. So that's going to be a very different face that we're going to see. And it'll remain to be seen what that actually does for us. Because again, Aries is the first sign. So it is literally a new beginning. Saturn in Pisces is kind of like, okay, that's the end of the cycle. Now we're beginning a new one. So what I wanted to do was draw some runes for today. I usually do a 4. I want to do a 5. And I kind of want to see what the energy is for today that we need to know about and what it is that we need to do. Let's see what our last one is. Oh, wow. Okay. All right. So here's our runes for today. Our first rune is Lagus. Okay. And Lagus is very much a okay, this is a rune of intuition. This is the rune that I've talked about when I've said it's about evaluating without understanding, without having to evaluate. I was trying to get that mixed up in my head. But yeah, understanding without having to evaluate, because evaluation requires all those things. It requires analysis. It requires looking at things, staring at, kind of looking things over. And so this is about this kind of evaluating from the heart space. That is one thing that I had said, because if you join me a little bit later, Capricorn is my 4th house, and I'm a full-time carer for my brother, so my focus is very family-driven already. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. And that's definitely that definitely requires a lot of strength to do that kind of work. And that's, yeah. And And yeah, okay. So your Capricorn is fourth house. It's interesting. What is my fourth? My fourth house is actually Virgo, but that would definitely, yeah, there's something that's going to be potentially changing in that dynamic. So you've got that family driven thing, and the question is, in the midst of doing that kind of work, which is very important work, how do you find where you are in that? You know, how a lot of times there's been a lot around identity, and how do we find where we are? Where's our heart? Where we need to be? And so yeah, that can be rather challenging. Now, okay, so this is our situation. So we're in this space. The other thing about Laguz, it is the sphere of the moon. So Laguz does have to do Laguz and Inguz, and actually we have both of those in here. And so I think that this eclipse that's coming up as well is between this and what's happening today. There's some kind of a gateway here. There's some kind of a bridge to something new is starting to open up. And I'm certainly not the only one to say this. There's a lot of astrologers who are talking about this as this period of opening up. And we've been seeing a lot of focus on the first house. And yes, I know things are moving into Aries, but I think it's also about who we are and trying to redefine who we are, and not in terms of the social expectation of, well, if you're successful, then you're wealthy, or you're this, or you're that. We tend to do that. And I think, too, that's also why people sometimes are, particularly in a lot of places, are reluctant to question the rights and privileges of billionaires, for example, who do definitely get privileges that the rest of us don't in terms of a lot of things. And it's because there's this, okay, we've got this, this in here. Okay. Yeah, I don't need any, I don't need any Jesus people in the chat. Thanks very much. I'm not, there's no proselytization in my chat. Thank you very much. So in any case, so in any case, it's, we've got this idea of Laguz. We've got this idea of, trying to tune into our emotions, trying to tune into that things that is felt but not necessarily understood. We may feel certain things and say, I don't really understand why I'm feeling this. But there's also been a refocusing on ourselves and our identities, because as the systems around us are changing, then we're changing. Okay, you know, we are definitely changing in this space. So so we will, you know, so we will see where. That you know, what that seems to be the space that we're in right now, and that makes sense because we're in a Pisces space right now. We're in Pisces. There is that kind of dreamy, kind of, we know things, but we're not sure we don't know things. I would see a lot of the Black Moon Lilith card as well, where that's kind of the we know that something lurks, but we're not really sure what it is and whether it's good or bad. You know, there's that kind of an energy there. And the thing is, the environment we're in is Isa. And Isa is the sense of feeling stuck. It's like, it's winter. It's winter energy. And it's the idea that we feel, you know, we're going strictly on our intuition, but we're in effect blind. We can't see the way forward with things. Now okay, so the course of action, though, that's called for here is interesting, because now we have Kano. I was just talking about opening up. Kano is the rune of fire. This is the rune of opening. So what do we say about that? Okay, so we've got Laguz, which tends to be, I don't know if it's literally associated with Pisces or not, but it's definitely more Piscean energy. Whereas Kano would definitely be more Aries or fire energy. It's that opening up. We're moving towards that. We're moving towards spring. Okay, we're moving out of this winter space and towards spring. Quite literally, if you're in the northern hemisphere, and quite figuratively, if we have this, you have this idea that we are opening up, and usually Kano, there's a trigger to Kano. There's something that triggers an awakening, an opening. And you know, it's funny. I kind of started this morning. I always do these live streams looking outside my window and looking at my neighbor's yard, looking at the graveyard over there, and of course all the grass is yellow and brown. But you know, I'm starting to see all the green popping up. And so yeah, I think about it in those terms, in the sense that something, even though it seems like everything's dead, like something new is still awakening and coming out, you know? So the idea is almost like, okay, we're coming out of winter and we need to awaken and come out to being whoever we are, authentically, whatever that means for us. with a lot of the, with the different the challenges that we're facing. Because again, when you have a big shift in the collective, even if we are, focused, minding our own business, doing our own thing, doing a day-to-day, we still can't, it's still almost impossible to lose the collective. Okay. It's almost impossible to completely stay away from it. If you have any kind of sensitivity at all, if you have any kind of empathy, any kind of spiritual awareness, it's hard to not go out and not feel that. I think a lot of us talk about that. You kind of absorb it like a sponge, and ideally you want to do things to protect your energy so that doesn't happen. But it's like that balance we've talked about between vulnerability and protection. We may feel excessively vulnerable right now because it's like we're out there, and when you're not really sure of the sphere that you're in, that can affect your confidence as well. But again, if we think about fire, that's also Leo, right? Leo or Sag. It's that idea of being out there, showing who you are, letting the world see who you are, and not allowing the world to make you feel like you're small. Okay, not allowing to let the world that make you feel like that somehow, because you're not in a space where that you are, that you don't that you are, that you're in this space where it's like, okay, the idea is that you want to bloom, that you want to flower, that you want people to see the real you. There may be a reluctance when we're not sure about our own identity to show that to people. We may be in that space of feeling like, I'm not really sure who I am right now, so I would rather just take a break. I'd rather go hide somewhere. I'd rather go do something else, But this is encouraging us to open up. And this kind of goes along with the angel messages that I had this morning too. Like that there's something is ending, and the light is there. There's kind of like a new light that's dawning. Okay. So it's getting out of that kind of Capricornian, that more, I'm going to call it the more, I'm going to use the term negative Capricorn energy, but again, just understanding that Capricorn energy that does not want to change, that does not want to move, which is all the earth signs have that kind of an element to it. So it'd be more, in fact, one of the things I saw was like refocusing that Saturn energy into building something new. I'm seeing a lot about building things one thing at a time, brick by brick. We talked about that yesterday. So the sacrifice we need to make is interesting. This is Inga's, and this is the other rune connected to the moon. And so Inga's actually has to do with finishing old business. It's time for us to finish old business. We, right now, if you don't really know exactly where you're going, then focus on finishing up. If you know something's coming to an end, then it's time to finish it. Okay. And I think that is what this ending, beginning, this Saturn Sun kind of thing is about. And I think that's what these eclipses are going to be about. Virgo's in the South Node right now. This is saying, okay, this is about letting go of the old way. This is about not doing things anymore. And our outcome is the blank rune. And the blank rune is, it's literally like a blank canvas. It's a blank slate. And sometimes when you have Isa and you have Tagaz and you have the blank rune in the same, it does mean the death of something. Now, it doesn't mean don't freak out. It doesn't mean the death of people. For some people it might, but and a lot of times, and in fact, that was something that I saw about this. Sometimes when you have this kind of a thing, the energies of it, if there are people who are getting ready to pass out of this life, this might be a time that happens, because that's the type of energy that it is. It's like whatever needs to be released. If somebody has, it needs to be released from their earthly existence or whatever, you might find that may happen. And again, I don't want to freak people out by saying, oh, that's going to happen to everybody, because it's not. But if that is a condition that's going on, that can happen. And Suda says Fool energy. Full energy, yeah, a little bit, yeah. I think the blank rune, because the blank rune is all possibilities, right? It almost moves us from Pisces to Aries. Again, there's that idea of that element coming in, that warming of spring, but also all of the elements of the eclipses, because eclipse season brings massive change. That's true regardless. And usually there are changes that happen over a 6-month period. Now, the lunar eclipse, I think they said lunar eclipses tend to be more immediate. And solar eclipses tend to be changes that happen over a period of like 6 months. So yeah, so there's this Fool energy, right? And with Fool energy, there may be a sense of being able to take a risk, because the blank rune is, okay, you can look at, again, it's a matter of how you look at it. If you're looking at things in a negative light, and this does follow the pattern of all the readings we've been doing in the last few months. If you are if you have the attitude of change is bad, okay, or if you have the attitude of this change is a doom, then then you may look at this as the possibilities of, oh, what are all the possibilities of all the things that could go wrong, right? But the blank rune is all the possibilities of everything that can go right too. And you notice we've been steered towards the pages, towards the playfulness card, towards the adventure card, right? Towards the sun card, the innocence card in the Osho Zen deck. This is a time for this is a time when you now have the opportunity to really do something new, and to see the past ending, to mourn it, and then to be afraid of the future. They're saying, don't do, well, I don't want to tell people what to do, but that's not the ideal thing to do. That's not the ideal thing to do. You want to, yes, we may be mourning something. You need to acknowledge any kind of mourning that we have of something, whether it's a person, a situation, sometimes if you're moving, it's a place you've lived, whatever it is, whatever you're letting go of. We always, there's a tendency, especially during retrogrades, to kind of look back and have maybe a nostalgia for what's being let go of. But there's almost a sense of, yeah, but what you're about to move into is so much better. What you're about to move into is so much better. I'm also going to do the astrology cards today, because I think that's important during the Saturn Cazimi to have a look at that and see what that's about. And okay, so let's see what we have here. Oh, this is interesting. Okay. All right, so our first card is the card of the Grand Trine, all right? Now, Grand Trine energy is natural force. And Alex is saying, I'm hearing the don't look back pillar of the salt scene. Oh, which has been on your mind. Oh my goodness. And that's so interesting that you bring that up. Yes, the whole, right. That's the Sodom and Gomorrah story, right? The idea that, and I think it's interesting because, that whether you have the angels who come in, and people who want to exploit the angels in whatever way. People try to say certain things about that, which I don't think the text necessarily implies, or I don't, anyway, I'm not going to get into that, but nonetheless, it was people who wanted to improperly use the force of the angels. And as a result, it was like Lot and his family are told, okay, you've got to flee because the whole town is going to burn, and not to look back. And yeah, that's an interesting story to bring up here, because that is kind of the thing, don't look back. We're moving to, that I think that's probably the best summary of this. Don't look back. So when Lot's wife looks back, she turns into a pillar of salt. And there you go. That's probably, thank you for bringing that up, because that's probably the perfect way to express the energy right now. Don't look back. Because, I've been seeing some astrology around a split, people who are on the train or people who are going to stay behind. And that can mean a lot of different things. I don't necessarily like to think in that way, because I don't like division. I don't like splits. I think everybody's kind of in it together. I'm not that's not my way of thinking. But at the same time, there's some people who will be able to embrace new thinking, and there's some people who just can't. And some of those, if they're at that age or whatever, they might pass on. It reminds me of when we do like major system migrations at my job, and we had the people who were there. They were like, they'd been on the job for 50 years, and they were finally like, you know what, it's time to retire. And because they just knew that whatever was new was not something that they were up for, And so they were like, and it's funny because a lot of them invested so much of their life. I'm thinking of this one woman in particular we used to work with, who, her whole life, she just seemed kind of like a grumpy old lady, I hate to say it, but she was like, so her job, and she was very persnickety about her job and everything. And then as soon as she left, oh, the train has left the station. That's right, Zuda. As soon as she left this job, then we saw her like a year later, and she decided to go out and travel and do stuff. She's like, this is great. Why didn't I do this sooner? And that's kind of the thing. It's like, you know, and again, and I don't want to imply in a very literal sense that this means, oh, people are going to leave their jobs or leave. It's going to be different for everybody. What that means, what getting on the train means for you is going to be different. But definitely, certainly the universe is encouraging everybody to say, listen, embrace the change. Don't be terrified of the fact that the old is going away. Okay. Because this is a natural force. This is something that's naturally and easily pushing us towards something. Grand trine energy is easy energy. If you have a grand trine in your chart, in whatever element that is, that does that. Technical curmudgeons. Yeah. And I guess they could use the term Luddite, right? But I don't know if that always, maybe that doesn't quite apply. I don't know. Yeah. There's the idea that they don't, there's some people, my mother's one of those. She's just kind of like, she owns an iPad and she has a phone. I could not get her a smartphone because she can't figure it out. You know that personality well. Well, yes, if you work in tech at all, you know that personality. And but we always thought it was funny that when she was in the hospital, you know, they have that chair alarm. You know, if you the fall monitor, you try to get up. My mother figured out how to disable that. I'm like, oh, but you can't use your cell phone. You can't figure out how to dial the number. She says, well, yes, I did it because I wanted to know it. It's kind of like, that's what I think of when I think of technical curmudgeon. It's like, you know, I'll learn it if I want to. Speaking of stubborn Taurians, I don't know. I should be careful. You know how it is. It could be a case of pot and kettle sometimes. But anyway, okay. So we have this grand trine in the energy of Earth. Okay, Capricorn, right? Not only Capricorn, but Earth energy is this idea of wanting to be fixed, wanting to be stable. Wanting to find ground, wanting to have, you know, things to be reasonable and rational and fixed into to a certain script. But also remember, Earth energy is slower. It's not energy that moves very, very fast. We've been seeing the slowing down card, right? The Knight of Pentacles. There's the idea that we are in this area where probably we're just trying to find our footing. We're trying to find our stability, but things are changing. Now, again, these are not negative changes. But when we are in a space when we feel like we are trying to figure this out, it can be quite difficult. So what we're not seeing is the 12th house energy. Okay, this is well, 12th house is Pisces. Okay, but it's also this is like that blank rune. It's kind of like, is this your liberation or is this your undoing? You know, back to the pillar of salt, right? Is this your liberation or is this your undoing? But the 12th house says, really, ultimately, we're in that space. And it's also that Laguz energy that we saw. You know, it was like, okay, I'm understanding something, but I can't ground it. I can't put it into words. We're trying to ground this energy. And Saturn is about grounding energy, right? But in this particular state, it's like you've got this rebirth of Saturn that's happening. It's almost like there's a there's a reconstituting or a reforming of this energy. It's not doing the thing that it was doing before. It's going to be doing something else. And right now, that there's something very mysterious about that. That is something that we can feel it in our souls, but we don't necessarily know how that translates to the practical real world. So what are we being asked to do? The Moon card. Okay. This is the card of the soul, paying attention to the soul, right? Paying attention to where the soul is at. The Moon card too, it can kind of, yeah, it's tuning into the emotions. Again, it's that the Moon energy that we saw in the rune reading. We're tuning into our emotions. We may be, the Moon energy does tend to want to withdraw a little bit, wants to regroup. So there may be an energy of like trying to regroup in this space and think about where we're going, but not through overanalysis, through finding where the heart is, finding where, where do we really feel? I mean, we could sit down and write out a sensible plan and think, well, that's very sensible. But if inside of us we're like, yeah, I guess that's what I could do. You know, there's that sense there that you are not feeling this. But ultimately, we have Sagittarius, okay? Now, what's Sagittarius here? Now, that could be like Arcano, too. We said it was fire energy. But Sagittarius is ninth house energy, okay? Moon card fitting on so many levels is what Suda's saying. Yeah, it is, definitely. And, I mean, the moon is, it's like I said, well, in these decks, it's more feminine energy. We have heard the thing of the moon and the sun kind of flipping roles recently from the angels. But in any case, yeah, typically speaking, this is fourth house energy. This is Cancerian energy. This is, the way of the soul. This is the way of, the mother energy. This is the way of, of the domestic sphere, of what it means to be secure, to be at home. I mean, that fits in very much with the earth element card, right? How do we feel? Even though fourth house tends to be, it's Cancer, so it's more water oriented. There's still this sense of wanting to be cozy, wanting to find where we feel safe, secure, adopting, getting routines. Of course, with Virgo being upset, our routines are being upset. There's a definite need to break with the past. And we're still kind of in the space of saying, okay, I need to evaluate where I'm going, but I have no idea what to keep and what to let go of. You know what I mean? That's some of it too. When you're reevaluating, when you don't have any idea yet how to plan for the future, it's hard to evaluate what you've got now. And that's part of the thing. So the only thing you can do is go along with where your heart's taking you, because your mind may not be able to figure it out right now. And with Sagittarius as the outcome, Sagittarius is about a lot of things. This is Jupiter energy. This is expansive. This is freedom. Sagittarius is about being free. It's about being open. It's about looking deeply into things, about diving deep. Ninth house energy, third house energy, Mercury energy tends to be more provincial, more about the neighborhood, the community, the day-to-day. Sagittarius dives deep. It's higher education. It's spirituality. It's freedom. It's long distance travel. It's getting out of your comfort zone. And Sagittarius is more or less saying, what I'm literally hearing in my head is moving into allowing yourself to go on an adventure and expand in this space is going to set you free. It's going to set you free of the things that you feel weighted down by. And again, this has to be that's going to mean something different for everybody. What does it mean to be free? But if there is something in our life that we no longer should be doing or should no longer be part of our lives, then this is something that we should allow to fall away. We should jump in where the heart space is. So very interesting there. And being we've got like 3 minutes, I can probably throw a couple of these too. Won't take me that long to do, but I'll probably go through it rather quickly. And if you've joined late, just to let you know, I'm not going to live stream Friday or Saturday. Saturday morning, I have a feeling I'm going to have to drive down to Hunterdon again, and I'm going to move the astrology class to a different day. And I'm just feeling like I'm going to need Friday. Again, I can feel it, but I couldn't exactly tell you why, but I feel like I need Friday. So, so our center card is success, right? We're thinking about, what we've accomplished, what we've achieved. And the inner feeling of which we are unaware. Okay, so this is that hermit energy. The hermit energy is, it's being a light unto yourself, as it says in this card. But I think hermit too is that need to go to take time out and think deeply about things. Remember though, hermit is also Virgo energy. So unconsciously there may be there's this turning over that's going on, right? There's this turning over that's going on. Even if it feels like we have surmounted our obstacles or we're basically on top of things, Six of Wands has it's success, but it has a temporary feel to it. It feels like, I've achieved these things, but I don't know what the next thing, like I have a success today. Will I have it tomorrow? It's like that kind of an energy. And the external feeling of which we are aware. Yeah, this is the postponement card. It's interesting. We have aloneness and postponement. This is this idea of taking time out for healing, taking time out to consider things deeply. And again, like I said before about, are you looking at the new beginning as an adventure, or are you looking at it as doom and gloom and work and stress? This is that kind of an energy. Are we seeing the new growth here, or are we still looking at this? Remember, we saw the cards going from like winter to spring. Are you going to keep looking at the wintry thing, or are you now going to think about growth, think about moving? Sagittarius, moving into the space of growth, right? And the moon fits in there too, because if you want to think of that as mother energy, there's an Empress type energy to that, right? And even the Earth card, like there's this idea of planting seeds for what's new. So our advice card, 10 of Pentacles. We are the world. Yeah, and that's kind of interesting because it's almost like we feel like we want to retreat. We've got these two cards of retreat, but it's telling us to be out among people. It's saying, yeah, you want to retreat, but don't retreat. Like this implies that leadership, okay? This implies a sense that, yes, you do have something to offer. Even if you don't think you do, even if you think, I've had this success today, will I have this success tomorrow? I still feel like there's this energy of, yeah, you are recognized maybe for what it is that you have to offer. And right now, though, we may feel like we want to pull away from the world. We want to pull away from this energy. But 10 of Pentacles, too, I know this is not the same as the 10th house, but I almost feel like there's a similarity there. This is about being part of the world family. It's not, we don't want to walk away and retreat further. We want to expand outwards. We want to share our gifts with others, right? And the ultimate outcome is the 10 of Swords, which is rebirth. Something is definitely dying, but what's dying, as we see with this Nietzschean kind of a thing, the camel to the lion to the boy, whatever phase you're in, you're getting ready to move into the next one. So if you have been complacent and you need to not be complacent, then you might be in that phase of roaring like a lion. If you are, you've been roaring like a lion and you're tired of it, you may be moving into that child phase where now you can say, you know what, I don't need to worry about all that. I'm just going to go back to being playful and enjoying the wonder of life. So it depends on where you are. Everyone's in a different phase. But this is saying, I mean, you've got two 10s here. Something has definitely come to an end. But it's a coming to an end that hopefully that will make us more connected and less isolated. So if that makes sense. So anyway, that seems to be the gateway to what we're moving to, moving out of this stuck place. And, with the coming of the eclipse, we've got this Saturn Cazimi, then we're going to have the eclipses, then we're going to have the equinox comes next week. All of this is moving us. As spring is coming, spring should be coming for us too. Well, what a fun card. Yeah, it's, which one was it again? What was I looking at? Oh yeah, this one. Yeah, well, like I said, it's from Thus Spake Zarathustra, I think is what this is from. This is a story from there. But it is this idea that, I guess it looks better than the guy with the swords in his back, right? But it's like, yeah, it's this idea that, okay, when something is just most definitely over. And exactly like Alex said before, like, don't look back. Lot's wife looking back and turning into a pillar of salt. Like, don't look back on that. Don't look back on, because Sodom in that case probably could represent all the things that we are told bring about success or are about pleasure or about all these things. And by the way, that's me giving with my philosophy. That's not saying don't enjoy the things of the world, but we may be looking at them differently. We may be looking at the idea of wealth and abundance and what that means in a different way. So yeah, anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm running a little over time. I will be here tomorrow, but not Friday and Saturday. And I will post something about that on Instagram. I hope you all have a great Thursday. Oh no, Wednesday. It's Wednesday. Right. So I'm meeting my sister today. So it's Wednesday. All right. Have a great day and I will see you.